All right, so this is the first part of Unit 5. This is fishes and their adaptations. All right, what is nekton? Nekton is the opposite of plankton. Nekton are animals that can sustain locomotion in the water, against the water's motion. So they can swim on their own against the motion of the water. These are fishes, marine mammals, reptiles, and birds. This section is all about fishes. And nekton is divided into two major groups, holoepipelagic and meroepipelagic. Mero being part of the time, just like when we talked about meroplankton, they live in the epipelagic part of the time, not all of their life. So they go up and down. They go down to the deep and come up. They come up usually to spawn, sometimes to feed. It just depends. And then holoepipelagic is the upper part of the ocean where they live their entire lives. Okay. All right, and then this is the nekton split up. We've got fishes here. That's 50% of all of the nekton in the ocean. That's why we spend half of this unit on them. That includes sharks, because fishes are sharks, like I talked about in the previous video. Fishes, hagfishes, lungfishes are all fishes, as well as our ray-finned bony fishes. And we got marine mammals, birds, and reptiles. We don't spend a whole lot of time on birds. We just don't have time for it, and usually classes aren't super interested in the birds, which I get. And then we got reptiles and amphibians. Amphibians we don't spend time on. Reptiles as the main focus. All right, we talked about all of this and how it breaks down in my last video. If you have confusion about that, go check it out. And then we talked about basic fish anatomy, both internal and external. And so that's the internal picture here. And then that was the external picture. And we talked about this, took a quiz on it, and definitely should have known what operculum meant. A lot of us did not know what the operculum was. All right, fish adaptations. Biggest adaptations they have are buoyancy, sensory systems, and reproduction. And so we're going to talk about that, as well as like locomotion. So we're going to talk about all of those. The first is buoyancy. Bony fishes, fishes with bones, they have swim bladders or a gas bladder. And this is a bladder they can fill with carbon dioxide or oxygen from in their bodies, from the gases within their bodies. They can fill this bladder up and they can raise lessen their density so they can raise up in the water column. So they expand it into this big air bubble like a balloon, and the balloon goes up, and so they will go up with it. This is why sometimes when you're deep sea fishing and you pull a fish out, and then they quickly adjust to being really shallow, they'll expand their fish bladder. And then when you put them back in the water, they'll float around the top for a minute before they go back down, because they have to adjust that gas bladder so they can actually go down. It's like you're trying to dive down in the water with a life vest on. If you've ever worn a life jacket or a life vest and you're trying to like go underwater with one, it's really tough. It like makes you bob back up at the top. So that's similar to that for our bony fishes when they get pulled up to the top really quickly. But they can move these gases in between their bloodstream and the swim bladder. Sharks don't have this. This is a special adaptation just for bony fishes. So prior to this adaptation of having this ability, sharks will store oils, or all primitive fishes would have stored oils. If you think about fish oil, people take fish oil all the time. That is the oil that they'll kind of, once they eat and consume, they hold on to those oils, put them into their bodies, into their muscles, into their tissues, and they'll use that to keep them buoyant as well as constantly swimming. If they stop swimming, they'll sink. So that's one reason why they always swim. Another is they usually have to keep swimming so that they can breathe. They have gill slits, not an operculum, so they can't push water over their gills. Most of the sharks. Some of them have specialized things called spiracles that suck and spit water over their gills. The next is locomotion. So they are going to try to be, if they're in the open ocean, they're going to try to be as torpedo shaped as possible so that they can move without drag or resistance. So they're trying to, through everything, they're trying to reduce drag and create propulsion force by their tail shape. Or they're trying to be a maneuvering fish and they're trying to not be able to maneuver quickly between things and then have tails for that. So like lunging and maneuvering and things like that. The fish adaptations for locomotion, we've got the fusiform shape, that's the torpedo shape, the bullet shape, that's fused into one long drawn out being. And then they have a lunate tail. It looks like a moon, hence the name lunate, or deeply forked. This is deeply forked for the dolphin fish here, or mahi-mahi. And then sailfish, deeply forked, tuna, deeply forked, okay? Actually, I think that's a marlin, not a sailfish. Either way. The speed generated by their muscle contraction as they pass down their body, so kind of like this. So think about if you've ever done swimming, the dolphin kick is like this. And so that's what they move, but side to side with their body. So it's like doing the dolphin kick on your side is essentially how they move, okay? The slow swimming fishes have a laterally compressed body called compressiform. So fusiform like a bullet, compressiform side to side. And then the last one, which we don't really talk about, is depressiform, which is flat this way. And they're like, that's our flounder and other things. Those are more lunging fishes, stargazers, lunging fishes like our flounder and things like that. So they are compressed top to bottom, not laterally, but vertically. They also have a paintbrush looking tail or just slightly forked, but not deep forked. So they have a concave or convex, flat, which is truncated. This is round. That is like slightly round. And then that one is slightly forked. And so these are all fishes that are coral reef fishes, or they're rivers and lakes where they have to maneuver a lot. So they are going to be adapted to move slowly, but turn quickly and things like that. They also have defensive adaptations. This one I didn't mention in the beginning because it's just basic. They mainly use, or the most common use of defense is camouflage, whether that be cryptic or counter shading. Cryptic is when they want to look like their background or look in a way that startles or confuses prey. So if you're thinking of the Moorish idol, the one that of Gil from Finding Nemo that we talked about, when they switch directions, it's very confusing to the eye, and that's what they do to distract from prey. And then counter shading, these are usually our open ocean predators. Cryptic is usually prey. And counter shading is mostly predators because they want to be unseen from above and unseen from below. So if you look down into the deep ocean, it's dark. They want to be a darker shade on top. If you look up at the sun from in the water, it's very bright. And so they want to be a white color to blend in. So they try to blend in that open ocean area to startle their prey and to sneak up on them. The next is adaptations of their sensory system. All fishes, both our cartilaginous fishes and our bony fishes, have lateral lines. Now, our sharks, rays, and skates don't really use a lateral line anymore because they have a special one called ampullae of Lorenzini, and they're not usually schooling fishes. So they're not going to use their lateral lines very much. But the lateral line is a line down their body. As you can see in this picture right here, it's nice represented in these little dots. They're basically little pores with little sensors in them. When the pressure in the water changes just a fraction, they can feel it and know that fish are moving next to them or behind them. And so this is allowing them to school. This is how they get into big clusters together and form a ball or form a school and travel together. It also helps them feel the things they can't see because they can only see certain things like just around their head. They can't see behind them, and they don't want to have to turn around to see it and then go, because that could get you killed. And then lastly, sharks, skates, and rays have ampullae of Lorenzini. These are very specialized, again, pores on their nose, or rostrum. I also call it a rostrum. But it's like this special pores that can sense electrocurrents or electrical currents. And so our heartbeats actually have electrical currents. If you've ever seen an electrocardiogram, there are these, up and down squiggles, and that's actually reading the electromagnetic waves or electro waves going through our heart, the pulses of our heart. And actually, sharks can sense this from a good distance away. I don't know the exact distance, but they can sense heartbeats. So if they can't see their prey, hence if it's underneath them, the nose can sense that existence of prey by their heartbeats. Which is really, really cool, as well as kind of scary if you're one of their prey. All right, reproduction is the last adaptation we're going to talk about, and there are 5 different breeding strategies we're really going to focus on. The only one I really want you to know the name of, like as in the name of the special name that we use, is oviparity, and this is the fertilization that occurs internally, and then the fishes will then plant those eggs elsewhere. So they'll put them on a rock. They'll put them, they'll release them into the water column. They'll attach them to leaves and things like that. Or the mom or the dad will hold them. Think seahorses and leafy sea dragons. 97% of fish use this strategy. There's actually a lot of sharks and skates that use this strategy as well. If you've ever seen a mermaid's purse. They're these little black with extensions on the side, little black casings that they hold their eggs in. Essentially, these fertilized eggs or zygotes go into the water and then they hatch from that. And then another popular one is broadcast spawning, where they just release their gametes into the water. They fertilize in the water. And lots of different species do this as well. But that's called ovoviviparity. Ovoviviparity is when they have a yolk sac in the female fish, and they develop in there. But it's like basically holding a chicken egg inside their body. The egg only has what's available inside the actual egg. Once they use that up, they have to either eat their brothers and sisters, or it's time for them to be born or hatched. But basically, they release them as live young, but they're not like how humans hold babies. There's no amniotic fluid. There's no umbilical cord. So that's how they do it. And then viviparity is embryos develop internally, nutrients received from bloods or tissue. So again, no amniotic fluid, no umbilical cord, but they're like essentially absorbing it from their tissues and blood. And then hermaphrodism, it's not one of these ones. Lots of hermaphrodites can have all these ones, 1 through 4. But hermaphrodism is just essentially where fishes can change from female to male during their life. So clownfish, think of that one. That's sequential hermaphrodism, where it goes male then female, but it doesn't go back. Some of them can go back and forth. Some of them go female to male or male to female. It just depends. Okay. And then the last 3 we're going to talk about is like kind of like how this relates to ecology. So the trophic structures of each of the zones. So in the pelagic zone, in the polar waters, our marine mammals are our top of the food chain. So we've got our polar bears, leopard seals, penguins, walruses. Penguins aren't marine mammals, but you essentially get it, like baleen whales and orcas. Those are our main top predators. And yes, polar bear is a marine mammal. They spend enough time in water that we can say, yes, marine mammal. And then we've got temperate waters. So sharks, birds, and marine mammals are our top predators. So you got the whales, seals, sharks, and birds as well, like penguins and others as well. And then lastly, you got tropical waters. That's various fishes. Various fishes are going to be our predators. So that includes sharks. So large sharks like the great whites and the black tips, and tiger sharks, marlin, swordfishes, tuna. They're all going to be our top predators in those regions. Okay, so that concludes the first part, all about fishes. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Oh, there we go. Stop.